Huge new Project NOMAD release that includes our Supply Depot, also known as the NOMAD App Store, automatic updates for content, containers, and NOMAD itself, along with a whole host of bug fixes and quality of life improvements. In this video, I'm going to talk about everything that's new in Project NOMAD version 1.33. Let's get started. All right, here I have one of my NOMAD test boxes, and if we look down here at the bottom, we can see that it is currently on our last version, which is 1.32.1. So the first thing we need to do is get this server updated. To update Project NOMAD, you go to Settings, check for updates. We're going to say check, and we can see that 1.33 is now available, so we're going to click Start Update. So the update should just take a minute or so, and in the meantime, I have full release notes available over on the Project NOMAD GitHub, and you can see here that 1.33.0 is the latest as of the recording of this video. All right, there we go. Update is done. We can see down here in the corner, we are now on version 1.33.0, and if we check, we are on the latest version. So the first thing I want to bring your attention to is the Supply Depot. Now you can get to that from Settings, Supply Depot, or from the home screen, you can just click on Supply Depot. This is essentially an app store that we have built into Project NOMAD, and each of these apps is basically a Docker container for NOMAD-related open source projects that exist on the internet. So we can see right here, I basically have two apps installed already. We've got Kiwix and we've got Ollama. But if I scroll down a little ways here, we now have a full set of curated Docker containers and projects that can be installed directly into Project NOMAD. And I got to thank all of the people out there that have been using Project NOMAD. A lot of the ideas for which apps to include in the Supply Depot came from you guys, such as Jellyfin. So thank you guys so much for that. But here we can see our education platform Gen 2. So we did have Calibri previously. This is where you can run stuff like all the TED Talk videos. You can do full Khan Academy for K through 12 education. But the Docker container that was housing Calibri previously was a very, very old version of Calibri. And so they had released a new one, but there isn't a direct sort of migration path. So if you had previously installed Calibri and you want to move everything over to this new version, install the new version, and then look at the docs. We have basically given you a way to do that. Then we have Flatnotes, CyberChef, Sterling PDF, a file browser for your NOMAD system, Calibri Web, not to be confused with Colibri. This is Calibri, which is essentially an ebook reader that you can install. We've got IT tools, Excelidraw, which is like a kind of a whiteboarding application, Homebox for home inventory and asset management, Vault Warden for keeping track of your passwords. Jellyfin is, of course, an open source media server for videos and TV shows and music. Then we have both Meshtastic Web and Meshcore Web. So essentially, if you have a Meshtastic or Meshcore radio, you can connect to Project NOMAD over HTTP, bring up Meshtastic Web or Meshcore Web in a browser from a different computer or even from the same computer, and then connect your radio to it and use it like a client that you would have on your smartphone or something like that. All right, so let's go ahead and install one of these. I'm going to choose IT tools here. So we're going to say install. Notice that it said checking for conflicts because we're checking your box to make sure that there aren't any sort of like port conflicts or anything like that. And just that easy, we now have IT tools installed. You can open it from right here, but if you go back home, you should see IT tools right here. So I can click on it. It's going to open up in a new browser tab, and now we can see all of these cool tools that are related to IT. Now, for each one of these Supply Depot apps, we also have docs. So if I click on docs, this goes straight to documentation for that particular open source project. So some of these have like default usernames and passwords. Some of them have, special notes regarding, environment variables and things like that, because this is all just Docker-based stuff. But you can see that every single one of these tools is tested and has complete setup instructions that ride along with it in the documentation. For IT tools, for example, it just says first time you open it, it opens straight to the tools. There's no accounts, no login, etc. So this one is very, very easy to do. But some of the other ones like Jellyfin or Vault Warden, those are a little bit deeper in terms of stuff that you may need to do when you actually install it. For each of these installed apps, we also have the ability to stop or restart the container. We've got the container logs, statistics. We can edit the container. So if you, for example, didn't want IT tools running on port 8430, you can edit the Docker container, change the port, and restart it, and it will be on your custom port. You can also set a custom URL. So for example, if you have a Docker container that needs to go to /dashboard when you open it up, that's what you can do. And that changes the functionality of the open button as well as the main button on the Nomad dashboard. And then you can force reinstall or uninstall any of these apps. Along with the supply depot. So we gave you a curated list of Docker containers that you can install, but along with the supply depot, you can also add a custom app. All right, so look at this. So anything else that you can dream of that is a Docker container, you just paste the Docker image right here. You tell it what name you want, select a category and icon. You can do custom port mappings, custom volume mounts, environmental variables, etc., etc. And you can install any Docker project that you want right into Project Nomad. So that's super exciting, and that is a feature that I have wanted to personally include in Project Nomad for a long, long time, so I'm glad to see it here. It essentially makes Project Nomad more of a home lab server device in addition to all of the stockpile of information and maps and knowledge and everything else that it has. Okay, so another really great feature that we added to 1.33 is the ability to auto-update pretty much anything in Project Nomad. So if we come over here to Settings, and then we click on Check for Updates, we now have what we call a trilogy of updates. So we have automatic core updates, right? So this is for Project Nomad. You can set a time period for when you want Project Nomad to update. And essentially when we flip this on, if I release a new version of Project Nomad, your Nomad box is going to update automatically. Same thing with apps. Now, apps, of course, are all of those things in the supply depot. If a new version of a Docker container is released and we detect that, then you can automatically update to the latest and greatest. And then we even have automated all of the content updates, right? So this is your Zim files and Wikipedia and things like that. The notion being that Project Nomad is a box that you can set up, download all of the stuff that you want, and then sort of just forget about it, turn on automatic updates. It's going to continuously update itself as new content is released and new versions of Zim files and stuff like that. And then when you do need to take it offline, that's basically your point at time in which the knowledge is completely updated, right? So once it's offline, it's not going to update anymore after that, but this will keep it updated as long as it's online until the moment that you disconnect it. And of course, you can still also do manual content updates. Let's see if there's anything new from my Zim files. There probably are because I have not updated this box in a while. So example, here we've got Python docs. Now, if I just leave this alone, the automatic content updates will update it during my update window. But you can also still just click update and it's going to queue that download. This was a very small one, so it is already updated now. Okay, so a couple of other quality of life updates. If you click into advanced, we now have added this advanced tab. And there's only one thing in here right now, but we are going to continuously add to advanced for some of these extra features that most people are never going to touch, but maybe some people may need to use to customize their Nomad box. So for example, how does Project Nomad know whether it's online or offline? Well, it knows that because periodically it reaches out to Cloudflare 1.1.1.1, but we've run into instances where people have Cloudflare blocked. So outbound access to Cloudflare is blocked from their network. And so Project Nomad thinks that it's offline because it can't get to Cloudflare. This first advanced mode setting that we've put in here basically allows you to set up your own custom HTTP check to determine whether or not Nomad thinks that it's online or offline. All right, another quality of life improvement. If we go back home and we click into our maps, If I scroll into, for example, Reno, Nevada, and then I go back home and then I click into maps again, it remembers where you last scrolled in the map. So previously it would have gone back to that overview of the United States. Now it just remembers where you last left it. One more quality of life improvement. If you go to Settings and Content Manager, we now have a Rescan Library button. And what this does is basically if you copy a bunch of Zim files into Project Nomad from like a USB stick or across a network or something like that, this Rescan library basically checks for new Zim files and then automatically brings them into your content manager. Again, that's another feature that was requested by users, and we have now implemented that. And the final one that I'm going to talk about here is in our knowledge base. So let me go back home. I'm going to click into my AI assistant and into my knowledge base. Now, by default, ingestion of uploaded content into the knowledge base is set to manual because we don't want to just automatically, stuff everyone's CPUs and GPUs by ingesting everything into the RAG database. But if you have a file that is in process, so let me try to re-embed this one. You can see that this job is now ingesting into the RAG database, but let's say I don't want it to for some reason. I started this, maybe it's a huge file and it's absolutely crushing my CPU, even though we do have guardrails for that, but we want to, for whatever reason, cancel the ingestion process. We can now cancel all jobs. And now it has pulled that out of the processing queue. Again, something that users asked for, and we have now built it. All right, so there we have it. That is the overview of Project Nomad version 1.33. This project is just getting better and better with every single version, and a lot of that is because of the feedback that we received from you guys. So thank you very much. If you guys want all the information about Project Nomad, go to projectnomad.us, and I hope you guys download it, install it, run the benchmarks, and of course, give me any feedback that you have. All right, thank you guys so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.